opponent's base, you might as well just staff. The cooldown finishes earlier, you know, whatever. Lots of advantages. So, now it's pretty much just 000 waiting for the final fight to happen. He knows that Ted is going to run out of gold. Before he does, he's just going to have to bring the fight to him and try and take down the base, and he's waiting for that, and here comes Ted. Notice that Dark Ranger is not even out yet. Well, now the Dark Ranger's out. And they have no items. Ted's heroes have basically no items. He's been forced to sell them because of gold problems. And that's another effect of the harass. It's been very, very devastating to Ted's economy, and so he's had to sell items. He's had to make all sorts of sacrifices, like canceling his tech, selling items. Not something you want to do. And really, the dangerous nature of Paladin First means that there's just not much the Undead can do to prevent it. The good ziggurat there's not much the Undead can do to prevent it. Good ziggurat placement is key, but it's not enough. You also have to be... you have to do more than that, almost. You have to try and put enough pressure on the human that he can't send his paladin away from the battle. And Ted tried to do that, it just wasn't enough, and you can see, given... Okay, the game ends because that Death Knight was going to go down, and 000's heroes are obviously superior. Anyway, what I was saying is, you can see from this game, Ted did a whole lot of pressure. He nearly took down the expansion 2 times, and 000 just calmly harassed the Acolytes. He knows that if his expansion goes down and he takes out all the Acolytes, that's a slight loss for him. Not too much, not too big a deal. And his expansion didn't go down, so it was basically in his favor. So, what you have to consider as a human player doing this strategy is, when do I need to keep my paladin with my army and fight, and when can I send my paladin to harass? And basically the answer is, as long as you're not going to lose your expansion, you're probably fine harassing, assuming you have a strong harass available, lots of mana on your pally. If you're going to go there, kill 2 Acolytes, and then run out of mana, then obviously you don't want to harass. That's not a time to harass, that's a time to do something else like creep, or defend your base if the Undead is attacking. Now, and the Undead is probably going to attack, because, let's face it, there's no way to defend against the Paladin. What are you going to do? Sit there and try to block him out of your base with your fiends? So, the Undead has no option to defend, so he's going to be attacking. You have to expect that. You could try putting up more towers than 000 did, but towers, honestly, not quite as effective against fiends as they are against, let's say, dryads. So, against a Dark Ranger, which, you might not face a Dark Ranger every time you do the strategy. If you're facing a Dark Ranger, you need to think about putting up a second Arcane Tower to fight the skeletons. Sometimes it's helpful, sometimes it's not. It depends on what the army composition of the Undead player is. If they're relying heavily on skeletons, or if they get another summon hero second, then you definitely get a second Arcane Tower. If they have a lot of fiends, then you might not want it. Another thing, as the human player, you need to scout the Undead early before. I recommend scouting early if you're going to do the strategy, and find out what their base build is like. Depending on the map, it can be very hard to do this. Echo Isles is a decent map to do it because the bases are close together. You can get an early scout in because you know where your opponent is. And if you scout, ziggurat placement that's going to allow you to do the Echo Harass, especially if it's bad ziggurat placement that's going to allow you to actually get in there, I would recommend Paladin First. It's very strong. In general, the weakness of it is that you don't have summons to support your army. You have to spend a lot of gold on clarities. You don't have bold until later, which means that you can't basically kill the heroes. Unless you're lucky like 000 was and your opponent doesn't react fast enough to your gaining a level. Pretty much you're going to depend on... Your strategy depends on that harassment. And executing it well and at the right time is the key. Let's see, as the Undead, what can you do to defend against it? I've already mentioned ziggurat placement, which is the most important thing, and you must do it every game. Because otherwise, you will be beaten by Paladin First every time. Obviously, on a huge map like Twisted Meadows, you don't have to worry about the Paladin First so much, because the distance to harass is just so great. but it's a good practice to try and place your Ziggurat in a protective way anyway. Um, let's see. What else? What can you do other than Ziggurat? Like I said, you can't really defend, so you need to be the aggressor. I think the best move that Ted made in this game was getting a meat wagon, and the worst move that he made in this game was losing the meat wagon. He could have taken down the expansion. It would basically have taken one more meat wagon shot and a few fiend hits, and he didn't do that for some reason. I think he was just sort of panicked and lost some of his micro ability or something. Yeah, taking out the expansion would have been huge. So I would recommend meat wagons. They don't get coiled either. So, you know, good stuff. Obviously they're vulnerable, but because they can't get coiled, it's almost as though they have an extra 300 health against a level 5 paladin. Um, I'd also recommend that you try and tech to tier 3 if you can. It's difficult because the paladin is going to be coming in, but if you know that the paladin is going to be away from your base for a certain amount of time, for example, because you're putting serious pressure on the human and you expect to be doing so for the foreseeable future, then it would be a good time to tech. A tier 3 tech really frees you up a lot. You can get destroyers, and destroyers are not lightable, so they can actually fight against the human. And destroyers don't have to worry about defended foot. Destroyers don't have to worry about the paladin unless it gets an orb of fire, which it's not going to do. Destroyers deal damage to towers. All sorts of things are good about destroyers. You should definitely consider them. If you can possibly get there, that will really free up your game a lot. Now, it's obviously possible to beat destroyers with a Paladin First, but destroyers certainly make the human have to try a little harder than 000 did here. Let's see. Anything else? Any other tips for the undead player? I don't have a terrible amount of experience playing against this strategy as undead, so I can't really tell you what works for me and what doesn't. I don't have a large enough sample size, but yeah, definitely think about how you're going to harass the human, how you're going to counter harass. Basically, you need to preferably do more than just kill peasants. The Arcane Vault is a good target. The Paladin relies heavily on it. And you can take it down fairly quickly with the skeletons if you chose the Dark Ranger. If you chose another hero, let's say you chose the Death Knight. In that case, you're going to have a little bit more trouble going for the Arcane Vault, but you can also do the Peasant Harass more quickly, and you can escape more quickly because of the R. So you can also beat this with a Death Knight. You don't need a Dark Ranger. I honestly don't know why Ted chose a Dark Ranger. I don't know what his thought process was, but it wasn't something involving the Paladin. He didn't know about the Paladin at the time. So that was sort of a serendipitous thing. Anyway, yeah, I was originally going to do the second game in the series, but turns out that game, I watched it, it was really bad. So it was basically just Ted stomping all over 000 and 000 never having a chance at all in the game. So yeah, it was only a 2-game series, so that was the end. Anyway, yeah, this commentary was kind of bad. I'm a bit rusty, but sorry for that. I hope some people enjoyed it, especially if you're an aficionado of the Paladin First. I bet you enjoyed this game. So anyway, thanks for listening. Like I said, I take requests. This one, I would like to point out, had ultimate use on both sides. Even though I missed the resurrection. I'm sorry. Anyway, yeah. So, thanks for listening. Requests are good. Comments are good. If I haven't responded to your PM, that's not because I haven't read it or anything. It's just because I've been really overworked and haven't found the energy to respond to anything yet. So, sorry about that if I haven't responded. I really do read them. Yeah, and I'll try to do some commentaries this Sunday, because I kind of missed one. Anyway, I don't know how it'll turn out, though. Anyway, thanks for listening. This is Not Anonymous signing off.